Good morning, everyone. We're going to give it a minute or so, and then we're going to jump right into our state of transit in Missouri this morning. Okay. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Citizens for Modern Transit and the Missouri Public Transit Association, I'd like to welcome you to our latest Talking Transit event on the State of Transit in Missouri 2025. This year has been a roller coaster, to say the least, for transit in Missouri. We've had some really significant highs, and we've also had some significant lows. Missouri state investment for transit took a 42% hit as part of the governor's $300 million cuts on June 30th. Our state investment dropped from 11.7 million to 6.7 million in transit support for 30 providers across the state. This funding provides the necessary non-federal or local match required to enable many transit providers to draw down some of the 91 billion in federal funds earmarked for transit as a part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We're in the final year of this federal funding bill. And right now, federal funding requires a 50-50 match for transit operations and 80-20 match for capital programming. However, there's also a lot of talk recently at the federal level to eliminate transit support through the Highway Trust Fund. This is important funding for not only our providers, but residents across the country depending on public transit. In addition, this year, the Missouri Public Transit Association released the 2025 Transit Needs Assessment Study. Unmet demand for transit trips is up more than 55% across the state, while at the same time, costs are escalating to more than double that percentage at 119% to officially deliver that service. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. We have seen some significant wins this year in public transit. The opening of the KC streetcar to UMKC. Tom's going to give us an update on that. Delivery of vehicles for many of our providers who have been operating fleets beyond their useful life. In Kansas City, conversations about voter support for an additional sales tax mechanism to support public transit. And more transit studies looking at better and more efficient ways to serve the residents of Missouri in many of our provider areas, and so much more. So with that broad overview, we look forward to discussing where we are today and where do we go from here. We have the opportunity to hear from both our urban and rural operators in Missouri. What is the state of transit this year compared to 1 year ago? So let's welcome our panel today. We have with us Tyler Means, Chief Mobility and Strategy Officer of KCATA in Kansas City. Welcome, Tyler. Dorothy Yeager, Executive Director of OATS, the largest rural transit provider in the country. Welcome, Dorothy. Matt Crawford, Transit Director with City Utilities of Springfield, the only medium-sized transit operator in the state of Missouri. Welcome, Matt. Not to mention the President of the Missouri Public Transit Association. Ron Forrest, Chief Operating Officer for Metro Transit in the St. Louis region. Welcome, Ron. And Tom Gerend, the Executive Director of the KC Streetcar Authority. Welcome to all of you, and thank you again for joining us this morning. We're going to look at these wins and challenges this year and discuss where each of their organizations go from here. But let's start our conversation this morning by allowing our panelists to provide an overview of where they stand, what's happening at their properties, and then we'll jump right into questions and answers. So if you have any questions, please feel free to add those to the chat box as we move along, or the Q&A box, and we will get to those as quickly as possible. So let's start with Tom Gerend with the KC Streetcar Authority. Tom, you might have some interesting news for us, so we're going to let you jump in this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you all for joining us. It looks like we've got a great turnout, and I am pleased and honored to be here to talk a little bit about what we're doing. I'm going to be brief. As you mentioned, we've had a big few months, and it's always important. We just finished earlier this year a customer satisfaction survey. And so really as a baseline for our downtown starter line operations before we expand the system, how are people feeling? And what we're hearing is overwhelmingly people are satisfied and highly satisfied with the service and the impact. We've got a lot of data that underlies this survey, but it really gives us a solid baseline for one, confirming of the value in what we've done for the last 10 years with Streetcar Downtown, the support that we've built through the provision of the service, and given us obviously a better sense of who's using the system, for what purposes, and what the benefits and impacts are. And of course, opportunities for improvement as we grow. So this is a baseline. For the starter line, we'll be reconducting the survey likely next year about the same time to see how we're evolving and how our ridership profile is evolving, what we're learning, and how we're performing on the things that are most important to the folks who are using the system daily. So really exciting news. And again, overarching the response is 90+% levels of satisfaction across the board on the things that people care most about: ease of use, reliability, and safety. With that said, obviously, the starter line was really the background and the jumping off point for our expansion work. And there's been a lot of reports. Just October 24th, we opened our Main Street extension, $352 million project, 3.5 miles connecting Union Station south to UMKC through the heart of Midtown. So our two largest employment centers, through our densest residential neighborhoods. It was really a special day for Kansas City. It was 10 years in the making, lots of hard work and from lots of partners, friends at ATA and the city and others. And the response has really been phenomenal to see the power and impact of transit and transit investment on our community. People have waited a long time for this. I was just on, and I've ridden about every day since we've opened, and I was approached by a gentleman just 2 days ago who recognized me and said, "This project's changed my life." He said, I live in Midtown. I'm a server at a restaurant at the River Market. I've got daily access that I didn't have before to the front door of my job, and it is having a real impact. And that's super gratifying. We're just, again, hot off the presses of opening, so we don't have a lot of data to share. What we can say is it looks like we're seeing, a tripling of ridership, almost depending on how you calculate the percentages, call it a 200% increase or a 300% increase in ridership over our historic levels. And there's a lot more that we need to do to dig into how people are using it. But what we're seeing is we've got full cars. We got full cars with people going to work, people going to shop, people exploring our city in a whole different kind of way, and students riding at home from school in large numbers, right? And so things that maybe we didn't even anticipate that we're starting to discover. So that's the Main Street extension on the south. We do have another project to the north to connect Berkeley Riverfront. That's a 3/4 of a mile extension. We're 95% built on that project. And this was, again, a story of how transit can transform communities. We started this planning back 10 years ago to try to reconnect ourselves to the Missouri River. And at the time, there was efforts to revitalize the park, to activate development, but it was an empty riverfront. And we had turned our backs to it, and it was disconnected. While it was close, it was disconnected, and there were obstacles for access: no ADA access, no bicycle and pedestrian access, and lower levels of transit access. It was disconnected. And so we've advanced the strategy to spend almost $80 million between streetcar and dedicated bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure to reconnect it and to also coordinate intentional economic development and transit-oriented development. And what you see is, again, the picture on the left, no development, an empty riverfront, beautiful park, but we hadn't leaned into it. The rendering on the right was what we aspired to achieve. And what we're seeing now is that vision coming to life. We have the project 95% constructed. We're getting ready to start running streetcars. We're going to have 5,000 residents within the transit station down here within the next few years. There's already over 1,200 units constructed, another 1,200 being constructed right now. and we think there'll be 5,000 along with a bunch of jobs and literally billions of dollars of economic development and investment in construction jobs and in permanent jobs that didn't exist before in the heart of our city, and that's what this stuff's all about. So that is coming up. We're going to be opening that project in early spring, and I'm going to go ahead and stop my share and say that's obviously the big things. We're also planning, though, with our partners at ATA on other corridors, right? It's important, just like on the highway side and the transit side, that we have a pipeline of projects. We have needs. Our cities are going to grow and evolve, and we can lead with transit in very intentional ways. And we've got processes in the pipeline for 18th and Vine, for Midtown East West, even for north of the river, bridging the Missouri River, which is a barrier for our regional access in many ways. So excited for the conversation, Cam. Thank you for having me. I'll pass the torch to the next presenter.
Thank you, Tom, so much. So right now we're going to stay in Kansas City and we're going to jump to KCATA's Chief Mobility and Strategy Officer, Tyler Means. He's going to provide an update on the KCATA side. Welcome, Tyler.
And thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. Much like Tom was saying, KCATA is having a real moment right now. Our ridership is holding steady. For the first time I've ever really experienced since I've come back to the ATA, we're running full buses where we're actually having to bypass stops. We're so full. And that's a unique challenge that I don't remember us having. We're recovered over 100% of our pre-COVID ridership. We've done that for 3 straight years. So we're definitely above the national average in terms of our ridership coming back. Our KPIs, our key performance indicators, are very strong. Our on-time performance and our missed trips are still better than national averages. Still putting service out, moving people, really reorienting our service right now and connecting it to the streetcar is that main spine that cuts through a big swath of the city. So we've really moved our service to be connector oriented, really moving east-west, and it's showing that it's working very well. We're moving a lot of people, connecting people to the streetcar and pulling people from the streetcar, connecting them east-west to other parts of the city. At the same time, on the other hand, we're kind of seeing this challenge with funding, right? Funding from whether it's local, state, federal, we're seeing it kind of contract a bit. On the local side, you're seeing some struggling with the community contracts that we usually use to kind of fund ourselves. And that really comes from the fact that what you're seeing at cities of every single size, that the cost of providing the services that cities provide is growing faster and surpassing the revenues they're able to bring in. And so they're having to look to make cuts. And transit is one of those things that they have on the docket of potentially cutting. State level, we saw the funding kind of contract a little bit. We were fortunate enough to get an earmark for some monies to help support World Cup transportation, as well as some security monies that we're going to utilize to put out a transit ambassador program, which will be very exciting and very helpful in helping people orient and utilize the local transportation network, not just ourselves, but the streetcar as well. And then, of course, with the federal grants, I feel like they're becoming more and more competitive, harder and harder to come by, whether that's monies to rehab our offices, our aging infrastructure in the buildings, putting new infrastructure into the field, buying buses. Conceptually, we're finding a real challenge of bringing in new federal dollars and finding that local matches to support those federal dollars. So performing strong, really struggling with the money. So what are we having to do? We're having to find out new innovative ways to generate revenues. One of the things that we're really focusing on is kind of building out from something I'm bringing from my time in the private sector, a almost business development arm, a private kind of partnership approach where we're going to really orient staff towards the idea of developing these partnerships, generating these new ways to bring monies into the KCATA, into public transportation, and really lean into our economic development arm. Much to what Tom said, we saw $1 billion build out on the first round of streetcar. We're looking at another $1 billion build out along the streetcar extension. And ideally, we're having some really great luck of building out economic development, whether that's low-income housing, workforce housing, or even commercial base. We've actually generated over almost $1 billion in new tax revenues in the local communities across 14 projects. And over time, that's going to bring in over $350 million into the KCATA. Much liquid money, very high liquidity that we can put in place in other places. It's not dedicated funds, so very powerful dollars. Very excited to see our economic development arm growing and utilizing that as a structure to build community. So build new ridership, build new destinations, and really plug in and build transportation out around those new developments. There's a lot of other things that we're putting on. One of the things that I'm big on, and you mentioned it before, is looking towards, are we eventually going to change the way in which we fund ourselves? Do we move from this community contract? Do we move towards a ballot initiative that's county by county funding? If we're going to do that, one of the big things we got to do is clean up the way in which people view us, right? Most of the people that know the KCATA know us from their experience of riding and what they see on the field. They don't know anything that happens at this office or the work that I do and all hard work that the other KCATA employees do. They know the buses, they know the stops, they know the cleanliness, they know the experience that they have. So we've started what we're calling small task workforce, which is what we're really looking at is changing that image, getting back to basics, cleaning up our stops, putting benches out, putting shelters out, cleaning up our digital stacks. The real-time signage is good. The information you get in your app is accurate and good. These are the kind of things that is really going to change the way in which people approach us. So we're really putting a strong emphasis on that, and I'm driving that effort right now. As we keep looking forward, it's interesting to think about how we're going to have to pivot and change, and it's a very exciting time for us to continue to grow. I'm really hoping that the proposals that you previously mentioned in terms of federal dollars being potentially cut are not done, because there's a lot of opportunities to take those dollars, leverage those dollars, and grow them within our community. With that, I will pause because I'm really looking forward to get to the questions. I feel like that's where we get the real meat of this conversation, but thanks again for having us.
Thank you, Tyler, for that update. And I think we're going to hear a lot about that rebounding service and tightening budgets. So thank you. So now let's turn to Dorothy Yeager, the Executive Director of OATS Transit. Dorothy serves 87 counties in Missouri. So Dorothy, I'm going to turn it over to you for an update on OATS.
Thank you, Kim. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to join you and talk a little bit about what's happening in rural Missouri. As Kim said, we do serve 87 counties in Missouri, but we're one of about 30 community and rural transit providers that are supported by MoDOT, and OATS, along with SMTS and several county systems, means that Missouri is the only state in the nation with rural public transportation in every county. And I think that's something that we should be proud of as a state, and something that we need to make sure our legislators understand and our local officials understand. And that's something to be proud of. It's something that's looked at a national level, and a lot of other states look to us and ask themselves, how can we replicate that? This month marks our 54th year of service here at OATS. So we've been doing this a long time. I've seen many ups and downs over the decades that I've been working at OATS. This has been a challenging year, but also a fun year because we've seen a lot more demands for our service. It seems like a lot of folks out in Missouri need us. They need everyone on this call to help them, and I'm proud to be an advocate for them. When we talk about transportation in rural Missouri, we're really talking about access, and both Tyler and Tom alluded to the importance of connectivity and access. In a lot of our rural communities, there are limited resources locally, but they rely on OATS. They rely on SMTS to get them to resources, to jobs, to medical centers, to nutrition in Kansas City and St. Louis and Chillicothe and Columbia. Our people we travel over 1 million miles a month, taking people all over the state so they can access their healthcare needs and their employment that they don't have near them. And that allows people to remain in their local communities. It allows people to stay down on the farm, if you will. They don't have to move to a larger community in order to have access to services. They can stay home and use the OATS transit system to get them where they need to go. One thing that has been interesting to me over the last couple of years, I've seen this trend, is when you think of rural transportation, I think the cliche is that we're only serving seniors and we're picking up the elderly and taking them into town for shopping and medical appointments. As I wrap up the end of our year and look at the statistics, our number one trip purpose was employment. For the last 2 years, our number one trip purpose was employment. And I hope that people can make the connection between rural providers and getting people to work, getting people to their job. It's very important. And not only do we take people to work, we employ a lot of rural people. We employ over 550 people throughout the state. So we're out there providing jobs and getting people to jobs. And of course, medical, that's very important, especially as we see so many rural hospitals and clinics struggle and close across the country. Having a good, solid public transit system helps people get to their medical appointments. You know, while all of us were getting ready for work this morning and getting ready for our commute in, many OATS drivers and I'm sure SMTS drivers were out on the road at 3 o'clock, sometimes as early as 2:30 in the morning for their first pickup to get people to dialysis. That is a critical service that we provide out in rural areas. And I can't say enough about our dedicated drivers who are out there in the field on holidays, if it's snowing, whatever, they're out there crack of dawn to get folks to their dialysis appointment. So jobs, medical, it's not just taking seniors to the grocery, although that's incredibly important and we continue to serve those folks. We are also a main employer here in Missouri and we drive employment and jobs. So that's an important thing that we do. I will pause now and turn it over to the next presenter, and I'm looking forward to the questions.
Thank you, Dorothy, very much. And I think you underscore a really important point that not only is transit delivering people to their jobs, it is a major employer in both our urban and rural areas. So thank you very much for that. Let's now pivot to Matt Crawford, the Transit Director with the City Utilities of Springfield. Matt is the only provider that falls under the umbrella of a local utility company. And Matt, we're going to turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, I was going to mention that we are a municipal utility. We're electric, gas, water, telecommunications, and transit. And that comes with a lot of great things and also presents some of its own challenges. Like Scott Bogren at the Community Transportation Association of America says, if you've met one transit agency, you've met one transit agency. Everybody is different. And we're part of that same thing. One of the things that we like to talk about is the value that we bring to our community, being part of a municipal utility, but also we like to speak to we like to speak to the value, but we also like to speak to the utility nature of what we do. We're there. We provide the service. We've been fortunate through all of the things that have happened in the last 5 years to continue to provide service. It comes at a pretty great cost, but we're able to continue to. It's kind of like we treat a light switch. You flip that light switch, then the service is there. We like to make sure that our service is being provided here in Springfield. Recently, I'd say fall of 22, we started an optimization study that we called Connect STF. It was on the heels of a comprehensive plan that the city of Springfield was working on, and we contracted with Olson to perform the study for us. And my favorite sentiment that came out of that is that the service that we're providing here in Springfield is excellent service. People just want more of that service. They want more of what we're providing. And as a function of that study, we surveyed our community, we surveyed stakeholders, we surveyed our riders, and we found out what was going well, what wasn't, what did they want more of. From that, in the spring of 24, we were able to present the results of that study to the City Council and to our Board of Public Utilities. And we were making changes to our routes. We made changes to our fares. We made some changes to our service hours. We made a modest investment in transit where we increased our service by 29 hours a week. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it was a lot to us. That's adding another employee and providing more service out there. We were able to shift some underutilized services to our services through the weekday. Now our service Monday through Saturday all looks the same. We run what we used to call weekday routes all day, Monday through Friday and on Saturday. And then we've got a reduced service on Sunday because the ridership wasn't there. But we made some real changes. We also made an across the board fare change as a result of this. There's been some pressure in communities to go fare free. We also know that some communities are they're making shifts to do that, but we were able to reduce our fares by 20% across the board and provide a more valuable service to our community and to those that needed that break in their ability to pay. And then, so when we did that, we expected ridership to be impacted by about 20%. I've read somewhere that anytime you make significant changes to your routes, you have a 20% impact to your ridership. And offset a little bit by the fares, we lost about 1 to 2% of ridership last year. And so we're really pleased with that. We still have not reached pre-COVID numbers. Before we made the changes to our service, we were projecting that we were going to be hitting that this year, but hopefully within the next couple of years, we'll rebound to pre-COVID numbers. Also in the same time frame, we've made some changes to our software that we use that helps us dispatch and route our services. And some of the things we were able to do, we've got more efficient services on our paratransit service. We're also able to provide our paratransit customers the ability to schedule their own rides, and then we just do a quick review before they're finalized. And that's a service that we haven't been able to provide, and we're really pleased with. And we've got a better customer portal out there where people can plan their trips. They can see where the bus is. We've got more accurate data. And then along the lines of data, we do have better data of where people are boarding and alighting our buses. And we're beginning to review that data now that we're 1 year in, and we'll be able to make better decisions based on where should we be placing amenities such as bus shelters and benches and things like that. And where do we need to make some small adjustments to where bus stops are placed. And so we're really pleased with the updates that we've been able to make in the last year. The next big project for us, kind of sliding, and some people from my area will be hearing this for the first time. But we are planning a fare box project to replace our current fare boxes, and we're going to have to push that out a year or two to get funding in the right location as we manage budgets here at City Utilities. But we will be looking to do a fare box replacement project where we can bring digital payments to the bus and allow people more options on how they pay for their rides. And we're looking forward to that. And for us, I think that's the big things that we have going on here in Springfield.
Thank you, Matt, for the update. So now let's turn to our last panelist today, Ron Forrest, the Chief Operating Officer of Metro Transit. Ron's the newest member of the Missouri Transit Provider team. So welcome, Ron, to our discussion this morning, and we look forward to hearing a little bit about transit service in both Missouri and Illinois as a part of the bi-state region.
All right. Well, look, good morning. It is my absolute pleasure to be representing Metro Transit at Bi-State. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all and sharing with you all. This is only my 5th month here, so I'm still in the learning and information gathering phase. So just being able to have this conversation with you all is going to be extremely helpful for my development. I will say that in the few months that I've been here, we've been very busy. We've been engaging our workforce and our passengers. We've been speaking with key stakeholders and advocates in the region. We've been assessing our strengths and weaknesses as an agency. And what we found, thankfully, is that we have a lot more strengths than weaknesses, but there is a lot of room to grow. Like other agencies, we are challenged with workforce shortages that have operational impacts, but our team is continuously rising to the occasion to meet those challenges. We're thinking outside the box when it comes to recruitment and hiring strategy. We're working to eliminate barriers to participation in the recruitment and hiring process. And we have some, like everybody else, we do have some funding challenges Ours is at the county level, but we're working to resolve that. Ridership is up. A good thing. It's up 6.5% compared to last year. And even better, our paratransit service ridership, which we refer to as our caller ride ridership, is up 37%. That ridership is back up to pre-pandemic levels. All right, that shows that our customers in the ADA community, they recognize the hard work that the team has done to turn the operation around, and they really like our service. We're getting new vehicles, paratransit vehicles, buses. We're preparing to start the process of commissioning our new light rail vehicle fleet in 2027. We'll be getting 55 vehicles. We've pivoted to studying bus rapid transit implementation in our north-south corridor, which was originally planned to, was being evaluated as a light rail extension. But this BRT project, we're finding it's much more viable, cost-effective, but it still captures the same benefits as light rail if implemented. We're implementing new vehicle and manufacturing technology, which is allowing us to better meet surges in vehicle demand. Every quarter, when we have a service change, we're making improvements to our service. Our service change coming up on December 1st. That includes improvements to approximately 40 of our bus routes that serve the Missouri area. We're also going through a process of reorganizing our staff that put ourselves in a position to be more successful, to provide better oversight to our service, develop our workforce and leadership teams, and to make more data-driven decisions. And lastly, we have a couple of projects that are nearing completion. Our secure platform project that's moving along successfully, where we've completed installing these gates. We've seen ridership up, we've seen crime go down, and an overall increase in fare collection. So that's been a really successful project for us. And then we're opening a new light rail extension to Mid-America Airport in the spring of next year. So we have a lot of stuff on the horizon here at Bi-State.
Great. Thank you, Ron. And thank you to all of our panelists this morning for those quick overview of where each of the agencies are across the state of Missouri. As a quick reminder, please place your questions in the chat box or the Q&A, and I will get to them as quickly as possible. So let's get down to the down and dirty conversations here. Let's start with something that's showing up in the news in the last week. We first saw it in the Politico, and now we're seeing it in other news outlets. We're hearing a lot about proposals at the federal level to either eliminate the mass transit fund under the Federal Highway Trust Fund or prevent transit providers from using any highway funding for transit projects. With these decisions kind of be floating out there, these proposals floating out there, what would the impact be on your agencies, your service profile, if in fact there was no federal investment in public transit across the country? Anyone want to jump in?
I'm happy to start, I guess. So yeah, here at KCATA, federal dollars make up about a little over 20% of our budget. Majority of that money is capital projects. And so what you would see if there was no federal money, you would see a slowing in our ability to replace our fleet. As the fleet ages out and we churn and we have to buy new vehicles, you probably see us taking vehicles well past the useful life. We already do that, but stretching it even further in the future before we're able to replace the vehicles. Other challenges would be putting infrastructure out in the field, replacing shelters, repairing stops, doing ADA sidewalk work at stops. That would slow because the federal money supports a lot of that effort as well. And the other part that you would experience is a reduction in the amount of service we're able to do. So the 5307 formula funds that come in, a majority of that monies that come to us, almost 15 million of it, we actually turn it into preventative maintenance dollars to help support the service we have on the road. So if that money's not there, we're going to have to make further cuts to the services in order to right size our budget and our service levels within our local communities.
Thank you, Tyler. I know, Dorothy, you were about to jump in, and I see Tom Gerend's hand up, so I'm going to let you guys fight it out on who'd like to jump in next.
Go
Go
for it.
ahead, Tom.
Sure. I think it's important to first look back at the role federal investment has had in what we're currently doing and operating. And it's fair to say, without a federal partner, we wouldn't have a Kansas City streetcar system, period. End of story. Each one of our projects from the starter line to the current expansion that we just opened was directly supported by federal transit dollars and surface transportation funding, flex transit. So these things are critically important to provide communities with a mechanism to leverage a federal partnership and generate, again, new local money to advance improvements. And it's not just the services, right? In the connectivity, you think about the economic impact and the benefits that these systems are providing, right? Those things also cease to exist if we're not running the service and we're not doing what we need to do. So for us, we're fortunate. We have an operational funding stream, but as Tyler said, we would see major constraints on any expansion going forward. We'd have limited ability to invest in additional capital improvements as things age and get older. But the stuff that we built would not have been possible. I will say, just in closing, that I think, transit has been a bipartisan supported effort for decades because of the impacts and benefits that we're all here talking about. I think we do need to continue to make those front and center. I do have confidence that at the end of the day, the benefits that we deliver are too important to not be included in a really meaningful way as we're thinking about federal transportation policy. So I'm optimistic we will, at the end of the day, we'll come around collectively, and Congress will come around as they have in the past on this issue because it's just that important. But yes, it's something that we need to appreciate you asking the question, because the role of the federal money and funding is absolutely critical to what we're trying to accomplish.
Great. Dorothy?
See, I let Tom go first, and he hit on a lot of good talking points that translate well into rural areas as well. It would be devastating for rural Missouri, to be honest with you. The Federal Transit Administration's Section 5311 program is what allows us to have public transportation in every county. And if that program goes away, there will be many counties that would be not served at all. They're already underserved in some cases. But if you have low population, low ridership, you don't have the local support for transportation, and that's where these federal programs can help. And even though it might be low ridership to those few riders who rely on OATS, it means everything to them. So it would have a devastating impact on rural Missouri, I'm afraid. But to Tom's point, I do think that Missouri is lucky insofar as I believe our congressional delegation understands the importance and have always been open to listening to us and very supportive of what we do for their constituents.
Great. Thank you, Dorothy. Would anyone else like to weigh in on that question?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in here. I appreciate all those comments. We are supported by local sales tax, which means that we're not as heavily dependent. But look, we run a light rail system out here, right? We have a lot of critical infrastructure, so capital projects, we're going to need those federal dollars. We'll need that investment. Our critical infrastructure needs to be maintained in a state of good repair, and that costs a lot of money. And so without those federal dollars, it could have an impact on our state of good repair.
Great.
Not to mention expansion opportunities and modernization opportunities.
Thanks, Ron. Matt, did you want to jump in?
I do. I think it's important enough that we all just need to say our piece. We rely on federal funding. Pre-COVID, it was 25%. Expenses are up, and with CARES Act money and the way we were early in the pandemic encouraged to spend the money, we've just spent the last bit of that, and we're getting ready to get back to a pre-pandemic type number, and that'll be about 25%. Over the course of the last few years, it's been up to 50% of our funding. and that's money we rely on. And if the funding goes away, we would probably have to make some very hard decisions on where we're going to make some cuts in our service. And then also it'll really hinder our ability to buy rolling stock, or the big buses in particular. And so we do rely on that, and it would have some impact on our service.
Great. Thank you, Matt. You know, I was thinking about this conversation this morning as I was getting ready to come in and get ready for this conversation. And, you know, we've been doing transit advocacy, or I have, for over 30 years, and it always feels like we're in defensive mode with regards to funding for public transit. And we might see a win. For several years, we saw a significant win at the state level, a 580% increase. And then, you know, now we're hearing conversations at the federal level and at the state level and at the local level. And so when we talk about funding, you know, there's three prongs: federal, state, and local, as well as many of our rural providers have private contracts to help use for matching funds for those federal dollars. When you look at your agencies, what is the most significant challenge for you right now? Is it capital or is it operating based? And did the state reduction have how much of an impact did that have on your service, if any?
Sure. I mean, happy to continue, be the first to go.
Tyler's going to be the first out the gate on
Yeah,
everyone.
I'm always ready to get out the gate. So, I mean, I would say this is that our bigger challenge is operational, mostly because our funding challenges are kind of local, right? And with the state funding being reduced, especially towards operationals, what it actually did is impacted our ability to support or backstop the transportation contracts we have with local communities. Since we're not able to put as much in, we're having to ask them to step up. And many of them are concerned about that and wanting to know what is the trend going forward. They're like, yeah, maybe we can spot it this year, but next year we may not have the money. So seeing this trend develop is concerning, and it could potentially lead to more reduced revenues from local communities investing in public transportation. On the capital side, you know, always want more capital money. We'd love to do a lot more than we are doing today, but we're looking at a 5-year capital budget, and we're funded on the capital reserve side in order to allow us to continue to run that capital program well into the future. So we're feeling good there. Always looking for more, but we're feeling good there. But that operational side is where our concern is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in?
And I would just say for us, I hate to use inconsequential as the description, but the level of state investment is so low in transit systems. For us, it's 1 to 2. It's 1% of our annual revenue, thereabouts. And because of the variability, right, we can't long term build operational plans that are heavily dependent on it, because there's uncertainty, frankly, just in the history of what the state has done for public transit. We obviously appreciate the growth, and any little bit's important. So I don't want to emphasize, I'm really emphasizing the point that we're under investing in the local money and the state money is really important to serve as match for some of those federal funds that we talked about. So any amount is important. But the amounts are really low, particularly relative to other states that surround the state of Missouri. So for what we're doing through the state lens to support public transit, we need to be doing more. We're not where, in my viewpoint, we should be, or other states are that are aggressive in supporting transit, right, in all of the goals and the outcomes that we're achieving. So it's you know, it's moving the wrong direction. Obviously, we need to move it the other direction, and hopefully we can move it farther and a little bit faster.
Great.
Yeah, Kim, I'll jump in here, and I'll try to talk about this the best I can, being that, you know, I'm still getting an understanding of the funding environment. But my perspective is that at the time, operating is our most significant challenge, like everyone else. Now, in the future, capital may become, it may surpass that. But you all, you know, look, under Talby's leadership, you know, we try to play the long game. Funded through these local sales taxes, revenues, which can go up and down, you know, but we're disciplined in our growth strategy so that our growth doesn't fluctuate with sales tax collections, and the appropriations to by state. We maintain a steady and fixed growth rate because, we believe it's the most prudent long-term financial strategy. And our job, like we always say, and you guys, I know you hear Toby talk about this all the time, is, our job is to ensure financial viability that can be sustained because, we're accountable to our workforce. We have to make sure that those jobs are there in the future. We're accountable to taxpayers and our elected officials. They need to have confidence in our financial stewardship. Now, currently, overall, the county and city sales tax collections and the amount appropriated to by state are up year to date when compared to last fiscal year, and hopefully that positive trend continues. But we're still going to continue to play the long game. We're looking solid on the capital side at this time, but like everyone else, it's going to be hard to have confidence that our federal partners will be there so on the capital side. Like you said earlier, the funding in the bipartisan infrastructure law and the associated funding is going to expire next year. We're hearing all these proposals in DC about, clawing back money and slashing federal funding. And then, we have this tariff policy that's up and down, and no one knows how significant an impact that's going to be on our capital projects. But we know that there will be some impact, just not how severe. So, we have to commit to operating lean and preparing for a rainy day, and that's what we're doing here at Bi-State.
Thank you, Ron. We're hearing from transit. We have a panel of transit experts here today, but we also hear from our members. BJC is one of our members, and they're talking about, and they're a leading healthcare provider in the state of Missouri, and they're very much supportive an increase in state investment in public transit because they're now offering rides in rural Missouri. And we have a lot, and I bring this up because there's a lot of questions already in our chat box about access to healthcare in rural Missouri. And BJC has already said, we need to see state investment in public transit because their job is to deliver excellent healthcare, not transportation to healthcare. So they would like to get out of the business of offering the rides to healthcare and focus on what they're good at. And I think we hear that a lot. And we've heard from some of our larger urban providers, state investment is a smaller percentage of their budget. But we know like the city of Excelsior Springs, that state investment is 15% of their budget. So one of our legislative priorities this year is at least restoration of that $5 million that was cut from transit investment last year, that 42% reduction. And again, we're only talking about a total of 11.7 million in state investment. That's our ask. We are fully aware of what's happening at the state level, but that 5 million is critical, especially to our rural providers. And maybe Dorothy, you want to jump in a little bit on that state investment portion. For the rural providers, it's a more significant portion of their budgets than it is for some of our urban providers.
And not only that, there's a trickle down effect to this because we utilize that state funding to help keep the costs down for our local partners. If we contract with the BJC in a rural area, we're able to keep our rates affordable for them because we use state funding to help boost that match for them. And we're seeing reductions in state funding and talk of reductions in federal support at a time that we're seeing skyrocketing costs increase. Insurance, of all things, for not just auto insurance, but health insurance for our employees are skyrocketing. And my fear is with maintenance cost, wages, employment cost, insurance, I hate to see us price ourselves out of business because just to keep that bus rolling and to keep drivers employed, it takes quite a bit of money to do that. It's not we are not engaged in an inexpensive endeavor here. It takes money, and we saw all of us on this call saw our capital equipment costs just explode after the pandemic. To go from a $50,000 bus to the same bus now costs me $102,000. That takes a tremendous, has a tremendous impact on our local matching requirements.
Thank you, Dorothy. So we're getting lots of comments. What can riders do? As the advocacy organization, we want you to tell your stories. So contact your state elected officials, contact the congressional delegation, tell your story. Your story matters more than you know. So we have lots of lawmakers in the state of Missouri who don't even realize that they have public transit in their county. And we have public transit in every district in the state of Missouri, but they need to hear from you. Whether you're a rider, whether you're employed by the transit agency, whether you're an employer and your employees are using transit to get to your work sites, they need to hear from you. And so your personal stories are what are going to move the needle. So please make those calls. If you don't feel comfortable making a call, send an email, tell your stories. We actually have an upcoming event, and then I'm going to get off my soapbox. On December 4th, we have a transit advocacy workshop to help build capacity with regards to riders and anyone interested in telling their story at the state and federal level. Join the workshop. It's on mopublictransit.org, and actually get out and ride transit. That helps as well. As our numbers ride, as ridership continues to rise across the state, it demonstrates that transit is a critical part of the transportation system. Okay, so that was my soapbox. So now let's move on to the next question, and I apologize. So there's lots of conversation about the upcoming World Cup, and I think this one is going to definitely go to Tyler and Tom. What is the predicted utilization of the streetcar during the World Cup, and how is Casey prepared to meet the moment?
Yeah, well,
Tom,
first,
you're up, big guy.
yeah, let me say that this is back to like the cumulative impact of the stuff we're all collectively doing. We don't have a World Cup in Kansas City if 10 years ago we didn't start laying the groundwork for a 7-mile transit spine on Main Street connecting to the World War I Museum and Memorial. It was instrumental to the bid to bring the World Cup here. So through, again, 3 different projects and federal partnerships at every step, we're getting ready to, we just opened the major leg south I mentioned. We're getting ready to open the leg to CPKC Stadium on Berkeley Riverfront and the Missouri Riverfront, in the spring, pre-World Cup. And so we're going to have the 7-mile spine with the Fan Fest for 30 days centered right on the route, right in the middle of it. So we've been, and Tyler knows, we've been meeting for over a year on planning and preparation, coordinating with regional transit providers, the World Cup and the special services they're standing up. We also have a surge service plan from Main Street and our spine of alignment to run more service, provide more security. So I think it's going to, for us, it's going to demonstrate, I mean, we're already seeing full streetcars right now at base levels of operations. We're going to need to run more cars. This is a great problem to have, and we know we can do it. We're doing big events. We'll have plaza lighting, here in just a week. Down on the south end, we're going to be able to test 50,000 or more people coming in to that venue, largely through streetcar and other means, but through this new connection. So lots of planning is happening behind the scenes. I think we've laid the groundwork for a transit spine, high capacity spine on Main Street, and we'll get to show it off to the entire world that's coming to Kansas City. And so we're enjoying that extension right now, but it will be central to the connectivity and the plan to link hotels, major destinations to our Fan Fest, and then ultimately to ATA services, of course, and to the shuttle services that they're standing up to connect out to Arrowhead and the airport. So all part of an integrated plan. I feel good about where collectively we are. I think as a region, resources are always an arm wrestling match, right? And all of these things, they're big, ambitious plans, but I think I feel pretty good about where we're at in terms of preparation.
Yeah,
Right.
Tom kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's a lot of coordination from federal, state, and local, and us using our government contacts, our local private partnerships, our public partnerships with our regional partners in public transportation. We at the ATA are actually in the process of flexing some old federal monies to allow us to put monies in to support the World Cup and mostly support Tom's service, as well as this new service that's coming in that's overlaying to do transportation to and from the airport to FanFest, and from FanFest down to where the stadium will be playing at Arrowhead Stadium, which will be called Kansas City Stadium for the games. But that service that's coming in, we're going to actually use our bus service at the start to support crush loads. So as those games get out, as FanFest gets out, to allow additional support to move people to and from where they need to be. Additional funding will be used to support space buses on these certain routes that will be going by these I guess we'll call them non-sanctioned FIFA events, but there's a lot of fan fests that are going to happen that are not official FIFA events. And as those come to fruition and we know where those locations are, we'll have to coordinate with Streetcar and ourselves to put more service to make sure we can move people to and from those events. So that's where our planning is and where a lot of our funding is going to go, is to really make sure we're supporting that huge spine and this additional 250 buses that's coming to Kansas City for the games.
Yeah, and just for numbers, who knows where we'll actually be. What we're hearing is FanFest will be capped at about 30,000, 25 to 30,000 visitors a day at any one time within the festival venue. Arrowhead will be it'll be Kansas City Stadium. Largely required to be accessed through park and ride services. They're going to consume a large percentage of the parking area out there for festival and FIFA corporate ownership. So all that parking that we're used to for the Chiefs games won't be there to have access to, and a much larger percentage of folks are going to be required to come in through reservation and shuttle systems that are being stood up as part of the event. We're really the one region that doesn't have a dedicated high capacity rail connection to their stadium, right? So our challenge is a little bit different. I would anticipate what we'll see on the streetcar line alone is 30,000 plus trips a day connecting to the FanFest location. We've seen, and even in the NFL draft, when we were just operating the starter line, we were carrying over 20,000 trips a day to the NFL draft event, which for us in Kansas City, those are pretty big numbers for transit service on a small little 2-mile system running 5 or 6 cars. So we'll be bigger. We have grown our fleet significantly to support this broader expansion. So from an overall capacity and throughput standpoint, I think we're feeling pretty good. And I mentioned Tyler and the ATA support on the surge services and some of the overflow will be critical to have as a backstop to all of that. Because I suspect we'll have great plans going in, and then it's a 30+ day event. We're going to have to pivot, right? We're going to learn a lot in the first few days about who actually comes, about what the needs are, and be prepared to shift course a little bit as needed.
We've gotten good at addressing chaos, though.
I heard someone say it's going to be like hosting 30 Super Bowls in a row. So it's very exciting to watch from the other side of the street. So state, good luck with that, but it looks very exciting. So couple more questions before we wrap today. What should riders and future riders in this state know about your public transit system? What do you want them to know?
If I may actually kind of pivot on your question a bit here. So when you're talking about advocacy, I think one thing that advocates should also do is engage their local transit providers. It really helps if your messaging is aligned with our messaging, because it's not uncommon for me to go meet with local officials and them saying, well, they're saying this, but we're not hearing that from you. So I would encourage local advocates to come, reach out, engage with us. We want to work and try new innovative approaches and new ideas, but you have to work with us so that we know what's going on and we can align our messaging and try to lift all boats together. Because transit, as we were saying at the very beginning, ridership's crazy high right now. We've got full buses. We're having to bypass stops. Help us, have this message coordinated so that we can keep lifting up transit and do new things and put more service out there.
Great point, Tyler. Anyone else?
I would agree with Tyler. Let us know what we can do to help you. Let us know where we're missing the mark, where there's a need that we need to look at, and help us help you.
Great.
And
How many of you have? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ron. I didn't mean to cut you
I
off.
would just add that real quickly. I think it's important for them to know that public transit can drive the economy in red state Missouri the same way as it does in red state Georgia. And so we just need to make sure that we're encouraging our electeds to make those investments.
How many of you have rider committees?
We brought back our Right KC Advisory Council. Had one for many years up until COVID, obviously disbanded, nobody meeting during that time. And it took us a while to reformat and reformulate how to do a Right KC Advisory Council in this new era where it's much more digital and much more flexibility in the way in which we can do, webinars and teleconferencing. So it took us a bit to kind of put it together. But we have a lot of good traction. We have a lot of interest, and we have a good group of, I think, 10 to 12 individuals that meet regularly. And we actually use that information, stuff they bring to the council. We utilize it to say, hey, maybe we need to shift our focus, much what Dorothy was saying. Hey, we're not doing X very well. Let's go look at that, see what's going on. And we add into the small things task force that we're building to make sure that we're addressing these challenges we're hearing from our constituents. So it's been great, and we love having them come and provide their feedback.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So I have one final question for our panel this morning. What is the key takeaway from each of you to our audience this morning on the opportunities you see for public transit in Missouri?
Well, I'll jump in, Kim. The key takeaway is as we head into 2026, this is not the time to be silent or complacent. We've got to make our voices heard and make sure that everyone at the local, state, and federal level understand the service that we're providing and the value we bring to the community.
Great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dorothy.
I'd like to say, look, everyone should educate themselves so that they understand the value that what public transit brings to the table, so they can better appreciate its value and provide more advocacy for it.
Great.
Yeah, I think there's been some great successes, right? And the future of the state, I think, is bright. I think we need to connect the transit story to the health of the state, right? More broadly, right? This is a key element of creating a healthy, viable, right, sustainable state that in many respects. And so I think what we're doing in rural Missouri, the importance of transit and obviously what we're doing in the urban areas in particular is just instrumental as we think about how do we make sure we're competing, right, with our neighboring states and everybody. I mean, we've seen our compelling case in Kansas City and the stuff we've been involved in is folks are excited about the future, right? When we're thinking about what do we want to build, what do we see, how do we see ourselves in the next 50 years, and what's the role of transit in helping us get there. It is an instrumental component. It can't be forgotten. And I think we've got some good building blocks. But reinforcing what Dorothy said, we've got to be diligent and tell that story.
No, I echo Tom there. We, both of us actually came from the Mid-America Regional Council where we did long-range planning. We have these beautiful long-range transportation plans. We actually have a plan called Smart Moves that really looks and saying, what do we want to do in terms of building out transportation throughout not only Missouri, but the state of Kansas and the Kansas City area. And, I think it's time for us to really kind of look at ourselves and say, if this is the future we want, then let's work together to achieve it. We have great bones, but let's start putting some work together. Let's put our feet on the ground. Let's go get a ballot initiative passed. And let's go fund some of these efforts. Let's build that streetcar line. Let's add some transit into Eastern Jackson County. Let's do some stuff that we've not done that we've wanted to do for a long time. And we just need to take that opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Tyler. Matt, you want a final comment?
Yeah, I agree with everybody. We have value. We need to speak to that, but also we talk about advocacy, and those that are listening can be as strong of an advocate as we are. I think everybody on this panel has a great relationship with our regional FTA staff. They're doing a fantastic job, and we appreciate our relationships with them. We have strong relationships with our legislators, at all levels. We try hard to keep those relationships strong, and just having a voice from our passengers, from our communities in support of us, I think would go a long way, and leverage the relationships we already have.
Great. I want to thank all of our panelists today for joining us this morning, providing updates, but also answering questions that can sometimes be uncomfortable. But I think it's really important information that gets out in the state and to our stakeholders about the importance of public transit to the total transportation system we have in this state. So thank you to everyone who's joined us this morning for this really important conversation. We will post this video to our social channels later this morning for anyone interested in rewatching it or sharing it with your colleagues. We will also post a recap blog to both the CMT and the MPTA websites, along with the recording when it's available. So please look for additional information about upcoming events on the website mopublictransit.org or cmt-stl.org. We will have information about Transit Tuesdays coming up for the 2026 Missouri legislative session. And no matter where you are in Missouri, consider taking a trip on transit today and bringing a friend. Thank you everyone for joining us. Make it a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.